Waterloo City Council work session. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Ms. Creighton-Smith?
Here.
Mr. Childs?
Here.
And Ms. Wilder?
Here.
And Mr. Foyce?
Here. May I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
Second.
And can you do the minutes as well?
Hang on here. We can have that here.
Actually, we did
It's a work
not-
session.
We don't have.
Yeah, we did not have
Okay.
minutes
Sorry.
last week.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We have an agenda. And first up, we have a discussion of the fiscal year 2024 budget with our finance manager, Bridget Wood. Hi, Bridget.
Hello. Like you said, I'm Bridget Wood, Finance Manager, going over the fiscal '24, both the proposed budget and what I'm estimating we're going to certify at, which is what documents will be brought forth come next council meeting with the hearing. So the review of what we're going to go over today is the review of 23, kind of giving you some information of where 23 is. Fiscal 24's published budget, I'm not going to spend too much time on that section because most of it will be then reiterated in the estimated certified budget section. This slide just shows you that for fiscal 23, we were 8th in population, 13th in valuation, 11th in tax levied, and 1st in levied amount. Just thought that would be something you guys would like to see. It was in last year's presentation as well, so I wanted to give that back to you.
I don't want to interrupt that, Mayor Pro Tem. But what we don't have on here and is that a lot of these cities use part of their local option sales tax to buy down their levy.
Correct.
That's why I believe it's important for the public to know that.
Yep, they do that.
Thank you.
The next slide here is the taxes per capita. So this is for the 810 levy. This is for the general fund. This shows that Waterloo taxes $287.58 per person or per capita for fiscal 23. And we are well below the average. This next slide is for borrowing limit. Unfortunately, I don't have updated numbers for other cities. Currently, the only numbers that are available for those are fiscal 21. So this is that information. The limit that we have shown there is for, was that for fiscal 23 or 24? 21 for us? Okay, so all of these are for 21. But our fiscal 23 limit was, let's see here, $204,491,591, and we were a little over 50% of that used. Next slide is going over the city staffing level. So again, all these numbers here are in relation to fiscal 21 when it comes to other cities. However, I do have in here Waterloo's budgeted FTEs for fiscal 24. Again, the published budget section, I'm not going to go over too much. This is what was is or will be published in the paper. However, that will be lower when we go to certify. This slide goes over different things that your property taxes pay for, but they don't pay for all of our city expenses. This gives you a breakdown from last year to, this year, fiscal 23's where the dollar goes. So the city of Waterloo gets some of it, and then Waterloo Schools, Black Hawk County, and other, which would be Hawkeye Community College and other levying authorities. Let's see, the general fund city services. Just wanted to show this one to show that the public safety is most of our general fund, and general fund is obviously primarily funded by property taxes. So this kind of gives you the breakout between what was the published expenditures and what property taxes would be applied towards those expenditures.
I bet we don't.
This slide just goes over our debt service funds, so what we are going to be paying in fiscal '24. And approximately 7.5 million will be coming from property taxes to help pay for those items. Property taxes calculated, this we go over, I would believe, every year. The only difference for fiscal '24 from prior years is that the state eliminated the multi-residential property class, and they changed the commercial being taxed. The first 150,000 is taxed at the residential rollback. And then also, when I had originally presented in January, the residential amount was higher, and it has dropped since then due to some legislative changes. So that also then reduced our property values as well. This goes over what a tax bill will look like at the published amount. I'll have this again later that has the certified amount. This just shows how it was changed over time. And then our valuation trends, again, when I showed this back in January, that red line, which is without TIF, was actually higher, but it is a decrease due to the legislation changes. And this shows those legislation changes and how they affected our valuations by class. And as you can see, we had a negative growth or a negative property valuation since fiscal '23 from, again, that had to do with the multi-residential and the change of the two-tier rollback of commercial and industrial properties. All right, now to the nuts and bolts. Fiscal '24, this is where I would be estimating that we're going to be certifying at, as long as there's no changes between now and next council session. So here, this gives you the what was published and where we estimate to end up to be, which would be a total levying rate of $19.73019 for the levy rate. And that shows you the different programs and what amount of that levy it would go to. And then this gives you the breakout of the other and the difference between the published and where we're gonna most likely end up. So again, here's that tax bill with what was published and where we're estimating we're going to end at. It shows an increase in the city's portion of about $51.32 a year, or 4.76%.
On a house valued at $100,000.
Yes, yep, at $100,000 assessed value.
Excuse me, sir.
Again, this just breaks it out to show you that residential has it's 4.7 or 5% rounded up. And then the commercial and industrial, they had a decrease in net tax, and that again had to do with the two-tiered rollback. So what has affected our budget? We have personnel increases of $2,054,229, which includes an annual raise for employees, one new FTE for a building inspector, and increase on health insurance costs. You can see the breakout, how we figured that up there.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question, ma'am, on the building and inspector, it says salary portion only, is that salary and pension?
So yeah, that would be just the salary.
So we're starting a building inspector off at $72,800 a year?
That says.
Excuse me?
They have a contract that says that's their salary.
She said they have a contract that would be their salary.
For a starting rental inspector?
Noel says yes.
All right. Should apply to be a rental inspector. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. The next section here goes over the non-personnel changes. So other changes that include it would be that we're having an election in fiscal '24. That obviously wasn't in this year's budget, so it is a change. Another thing would be the Consolidated Communications Board, as long as the 2080 agreement gets signed at the new division on how they determine how much you pay. So they went from 80% calls and 20% population to 100% property values in one of the commission meetings. So if that goes through, we should have a decrease of almost 152,000 on just cost for dispatch. Cost for liability insurance, work comp, and software all increased, and most of those were all due to contractual increases. Other expenses that are listed there for, like, we had a decrease for parking expenses. Jerry was able to review where she was for fiscal '22 and lower some of those estimated costs. And then the other expenses include some increases for fuel and postage and parts, and decreases for like grant expenses for police, GMT costs and accounting costs. For fire, a decrease to the grout expense because of the lower property taxes, and a decrease to costs at the convention center is what's wrapped up into that 190,000.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Boson?
And if the grout decreases, the 27-cent levy on the library decreases, correct?
Yep. So the levy stays, like the levy amount stays the same.
Right, but the
But
property
what they'll
values are down,
receive,
so that,
yep, is lower.
so that should be a decrease in that line item also.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, significant revenue changes that we included for this fiscal '24 budget included increases for clerk and finance for some fees that hadn't been increased for a few years, which would be like the gaming host city fee, gaming development fee, gas and electric franchise fees, and then based off of this year's interest rates for our bank accounts, we have received more than we had previously budgeted for, so I increased those, and that's a very, very conservative increase, just because I'm not sure how long the interest rate is going to stay raised. And then golf revenue is estimated to increase, and the ambulance revenue for their GEMT money is also estimated to increase. So this is the net change in the general fund property taxes. So we have the personnel, the expenses, the increase in the net revenue, and then I also included on here the business property tax credit reimbursement that the state says that they're going to reimburse us for due to that two-tiered rollback. They've told us in a budget work session that we need to budget for it, and they've also sent out some calculation or some calculators for us to try and estimate those costs. The $1,140,000 is an estimate, so I'm hoping that it's where it should be based off of what they had sent to us. And then the decrease in the use of fund balance. So that's just lower than what we had used in previous years. So that gives us a net increase in property taxes of $720,591.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem. Hey, just on that, the net increase to revenue due to BTPC reimbursement, were we kind of conservative on our estimate, or did we just go with the calculation there?
So the calculator actually estimated it to be higher. I went conservative on it so that we didn't over budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Boson?
Yeah, and following up on that, because originally when we were presented with that, I thought it was going to be a difference in about $500,000. And now we're at 1.14 million.
So that 1.14 million also includes amounts that would go to the special funds. So it's special funds and the general fund.
So, and then on the slide before that, on the increased clerk and finance revenue on fees that we haven't increased in years, those increases need to come before the council?
It's, the fees aren't increasing, the amount of revenue we've received from them, we haven't increased in the budget.
Okay, so it's not like we're gonna be increasing
No,
the,
no, it's just the amount of revenue we've brought in, like, so the gaming one is because people are out gambling more than they had been. So we've been receiving more funds in than what we had previously.
and that would reflect, because, I mean, they were closed for a while the year before with
Yeah.
the pandemic and everything.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And then this slide will give you the net change in property taxes. So we take the increase in the general fund property taxes and decrease it by what we're reducing the debt service fund and the special levies. So that would be the library and the grout. So the 42,000 is both of them combined. So they're both $21,014 less than they were last year. The next slide goes over how we're planning to use capital project funds. There's approximately $60 million worth of projects to be done in fiscal '24. The sewer fund budget, so there is approximately almost 32 million in planned revenue and expenses in fiscal '24. They have an increase over last year's budget because they need equipment, engineering costs for work with their consent decree to the DNR, concrete to continue doing more city repairs, and increased costs for chemical and gases. And then the stormwater fund has approximately 4.4 million in it for planned revenues and expenses. And that's actually a slight increase of around 39,000. It's related mostly to personnel costs and increase for machinery and equipment replacement parts. The sanitation fund budget, there is approximately 6.8 million in planned revenues and expenses there. It is an increase over last year's, and it has to do with personnel shifts, increases in contractual services for items such as hazardous tree removal, recycling and collection services, increased postage to agency services for the yard waste sites, increased costs to waterworks for the billing and telephone and fax expenses. Also increased fuel and motor and equipment expenses because they need to purchase a rear loader and conveyor. The road use fund budget has approximately 10.5 million in revenue and expenses. It is a decrease over last year, and it's mostly due to engineering or decreases in the engineering's part of the budget on consulting costs. The local option fund budget has approximately 13.2 million in planned revenues and expenses. It's an increase of about 148,000. That has to do with some loops that need replaced on Broadway and San Martin for traffic controls. The street project at Shawless, anticipated retirements, health insurance cost increase, and other miscellaneous expenses that had also increased for that department. Or not department, but 4 departments in that budget.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Boson.
that loop that had to be replaced at Airport and Broadway, didn't they get tore up by Aspro when they were,
What was that?
that loop that had to be replaced, didn't they get tore up by Aspro when they were overlaying that portion of it?
Randy, do you have an answer?
Huh? Because if it did, I don't know why Aspro didn't pay for it since they didn't get locates.
Yeah, these are on Broadway and San Martin. It's not on, I guess that would be out, Broadway's out by the airport, but I don't have specifics on that.
Okay, thank you.
This is more for when we go to reconstruct.
Then this next year, okay, because I know we had a big expense on this last reconstruction. On a loop, they got tore up.
The federal block grant funds budget, there's a little over 5.8 million in revenue and expenses. It's a increase of about 214,000. It's due to construction costs for 2 affordable homes and property acquisitions to do so. And then they also need to get 2 XRF readers for the lead program. Or not get 2, they need to resource 2. So I'm assuming they need to do repairs and calibrations to the ones that they currently have. And then last but not least, we have the federal housing budget. This has a little over 7 million in planned expenses and revenues. It is an increase of about 665,000 from fiscal 23. It has to do with increased housing vouchers and expenses related to homebuyer education classes, increased housing assistance payments and supply costs for their staff needs some replacement printers, and they have increased postage and utility costs as well. And that's all I got. Any questions?
Council, any further questions?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Bozen?
So on slide 30, the net decrease in use of fund balance of $768,081. Is that a net decrease from last year's use of fund balance?
Yes.
Or so what are we using for fund balance? Because we were like 2 point some odd million last year with.
We're using 2 million in the fund balance from ARPA.
So that doesn't show anywhere on this.
No, it's in a combination of everything.
2 million.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Bozen, any further questions?
Just curious on when we pop that 2 million out, where we're at with our 15 to 30% or whatever it is that Moody's requires to maintain our rating.
I would have to, I can figure that for you and let you know.
Could you just send me an email? Thank you. That's all I have, sir.
Council, any other questions? Mr. Childs?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Good, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Do we have them online?
Are you able to see, is Marta online?
I know we're a little bit past our time. Hopefully they. No.
Nobody's on Zoom other than John? Okay.
Okay.
Well,
All right, so we don't want to adjourn. Do we want to just recess until
yeah,
4:30-ish?
let's do that.
Okay.
Motion to recess till 4:30.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're recessed until 4:30.